Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Hospitalizations from COVID-19 increase yet again. Association against mandatory vaccination for healthcare workers. In sports, Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited could face disciplinary action for failure to report positive. I'm Giovanni Dennis and here are the details. COVID-19 hospitalizations have once again increased. 755 people were admitted with the respiratory virus on Monday, up from 699 recorded on Sunday. 48 are critically ill, while 115 are severely ill. 21,671 active cases of the virus are on the island. The country also recorded 837 new cases from 3,895 tests. The total case count is now 72,824. The positivity rate is now 28.4%. In the meantime, COVID-19 has claimed 9 more lives in Jamaica, pushing the death toll to 1,646. The deaths were recorded between September 4 and 5. The corporate area recorded 4 deaths, St. Catherine 3, while Hanover and Westmoreland had 1 each. While the government is yet to make a decision on the matter, the Nurses Association of Jamaica is cautioning against any move that would make vaccination mandatory for healthcare workers. There have been calls in recent times for the government to implement strategies to force healthcare workers to take the jab. Shamala Pullen reports.
In the last few weeks, the 2 nurses who have died from COVID-19 complications were not vaccinated. In a previous interview with TVJ News, President of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, NAJ, Patsy Edwards Henry, said some of her members were still hesitant in taking the jab, and so they have not made up their minds just yet. Since the issue came to public light that it was not just nurses but also medical doctors, there have been concerns. On Friday, Attorney General Marlene Malahoo Fort disclosed that the issue of mandatory vaccination cannot be ruled out. The NAJ president says the impression is given that the members will have no choice in the matter. She says while she understands the reasons for the position taken, there are implications.
Because when you say mandatory, it means you have to do it, whether you want to do it or not. And I would want to believe that this interferes with one's human rights, because there has always been the right to choose. And even although it is said that vaccinations for children are mandatory, I still do think that persons choose to take their children to get them immunized. So while we have this discussion, I implore the government to look at all the ramifications, all the legal wranglings, all the legal implications.
And Mrs. Edwards Henry disclosed that there are other legal issues which will have to be confronted if the government proceeds with mandatory vaccination for healthcare workers.
We are now going to have to look at the employment contracts. How do we write this into contract in midstream? A number of us have been employed for years. Do you now say it is mandatory, and if we don't take it, it will affect our employment? It was never written into our contract. It was never a part of our employment. So while we understand and we see that government seems to be wanting to do the right thing, we ask that they think this through thoroughly before it is thrown out.
Shamala Pullen, TVJ News.
We go now to the education sector, where we continue our look at online learning challenges. This afternoon, we take a closer look at those who deliberately put teachers and students at a disadvantage. Krista Campbell explains.
I don't know how I can manage because I don't have no Wi-Fi or data.
Kejon Simpson's reality is shared by many other students living in rural areas across the island. But here in Marlborough St. Mary, the internet challenges are not the result of poor service.
Starting from Zaniel N, some of the wire has been stolen by residents in the area. And we hear nothing. We call Flo, we hear nothing about it.
And with the new school year in its second day and with no hopes of getting online just yet, 2 separate responses from affected students for the internet cable thieves.
Catch him and lock him up. Please bring back the Wi-Fi. May I beg you, please bring back the Wi-Fi.
In Point Hills in Catherine, thieves have taken the remaining internet cables after their last heist at the start of the previous school year. Telecommunications company Flow has installed fiber internet in the area, but residents say they do not get reliable service.
If it is that I am out of internet on one of those no movement days, then I'll just have to make contact with my principal and other teachers on my grade so we can have the students still engaged.
In several other parts of the parish, cable and local TV are also problematic.
For the students who might not be able to watch these things or to work online, I guess they'll have to make sure that they have the textbooks. And then we'll have to make sure on the Wednesday and the Thursday and the Friday that we try to reach them to give out the learning kits.
The teacher, who did not want to be identified, is appealing for special exemptions which will allow teachers to move on the lockdown days in the event they lose connectivity or have to deliver learning materials to students. Meanwhile, at Margate High School in St. Elizabeth,
we develop programs that we can get data to them and that we can get devices to them. It's slow, it's not easy, but we are prepared to do all we can so that we can provide support for vulnerable students.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
Still in rural Jamaica, the Portland police are this afternoon insisting that they have put measures in place to reduce robberies and break-ins in the parish. The police held a press conference on Monday as they sought to assure the business community that thieves will not take over the parish.
Recent break-ins within the business community of Port Antonio have caught the attention of the Portland police. The latest incident occurred on Saturday in a community known as The Scheme on Wade Road shortly after midnight. It's reported that 5 men tried to carry out the robbery, but the police arrived and engaged them in a shootout. Following the exchange of bullets, the police discovered what appeared to be items left behind by the men.
Items included wristwatches, earphones, cellular phones, other digital devices, jewelry, small household appliances, and a quantity of cash.
Following a search of the area, one of the men was found suffering from bullet wounds. He was taken to the Port Antonio hospital where he died. He has been identified as Warren Golding, who was a person of interest in a number of break-ins previously reported in the parish. Head of operations for the Portland Police Division, Deputy Superintendent Troyville Houghton, says the police have implemented new strategies to reduce robberies. This, he argues, follows numerous complaints from business operators.
The support that we have been getting, the level of cooperation that we have been getting, we are extremely grateful. And the persons who have been supporting the investigations and the police action, they know themselves. And so, we want to express our gratitude for that kind of support. And we vow that we will continue to do whatever is necessary. And we will push as hard as we can to ensure that we put a stop into these sort of criminal activities.
DSP Houghton says 2 of the other 4 men have been identified. They are to report to the police immediately.
They are Andrew Bennett, OC Bad Hug, OC Bad P. He's of a Boundbrook address in Portland. And also Darren Johnson is also called Tallman. And he is of a Wayne Road address. Both Johnson and Bennett are known to feature and frequent drapers and the rural communities in Portland.
In the meantime, DSP Houghton says the parish's murder tally has increased by 4 when compared to the same period last year. Cody Ann Barrett, TVJ News.
Time now for a break, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when you return. Welcome back. We're continuing the news. A man is dead and his mother in custody following a domestic dispute in Huddersfield, St. Mary. It's understood that sometime after 1 p.m. on Monday, the man who is said to be mentally ill hit his mother with a broken block. It's further understood that shortly after, he went to the hospital for medication. On his return home, residents said he was acting in a boisterous manner, making death threats. A few moments later, he was seen running down the road where he suddenly collapsed. When residents ran to help him, it was revealed that he had multiple stab wounds. Investigations are ongoing. Jamaica has been elected unopposed as chair of the Latin American and Caribbean Forestry Commission, LAC-FC, for the next 2 years. The election took place at the ongoing 32nd LAC-FC virtual meeting, which ends on Friday. Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Department and Conservator of Forests, Ainsley Henry, will serve as LAC-FC president during the 2-year period. Environment and Climate Change Minister Pernell Charles Jr., in his address to the conference, underscored the country's dedication to developing the regional forestry industry. The forum is being facilitated by the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, of the United States. Of the United Nations, rather, that should be. And the first Africa CARICOM Summit was held today. In addressing the summit, Prime Minister Andrew Holness pointed to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which he says has been creating an enabling environment for flow of investment and tourism.
For Jamaica, there is potential in the agro, industry, and logistics sector. And Jamaican companies have already invested in Africa. Opportunities also exist for scientific research and collaboration, investment in healthcare, technological innovation and digitization, as well as in the creative economy.
The summit was initially due to take place in 2020, but had to be put on hold because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It follows on the declaration by the Africa Union of the Diaspora as the 6th region of Africa.
This summit is the fulfillment of the vision of Garvey, Mandela, Nkrumah, Nyerere, and other Pan-Africanists who spoke of the manifest potential and greatness to be achieved from unified engagement. Let us strive to fulfill their dreams and ours to unleash the full potential of the African continent and the African diaspora.
The virtual event was hosted by Kenya under the theme Unity Across Continents and Oceans, Opportunities for Deepening Integration. And it's now time for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
In the world of business, the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation, JANAC, will be seeking U.S. certification. JANAC's CEO, Sharon May Shirley, says the process is expected to get underway before the end of the year.
Later this year, we will be audited by the FDA in our quest to become a recognized FDA third-party accreditation body, facilitation, ease of exportation to the United States. At present, accreditation is not compulsory in Jamaica. However, internationally, legislation is increasingly being developed that makes it mandatory to use accredited entities. As such, JANA continues to urge local and regional conformity assessment bodies to become accredited.
External demand for Jamaican agricultural produce and value-added items continue to increase despite the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Agriculture Minister Floyd Green, for the January to April quarter of 2021, Jamaica earned $10 million from the exports of yam, up from $8 million during the corresponding period last year. He noted that ground provisions have emerged as the country's leading domestic crop export. And
now for the top regional and international stories, here's O'Shane Masters.
In news from the region, Antigua's Prime Minister Gaston Brown says it is becoming increasingly difficult to pay salaries and wages for public sector workers due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. His statements come amidst criticism of his administration by the main opposition United Progressive Party that it should be more compassionate towards pensioners who have not been paid for the months of July and August. In an interview on Monday, Mr. Brown reiterated calls for the population to get vaccinated so as to allow for a reopening of the economy. Further afield, scores of Afghanistan protesters marched against Taliban rule through the streets of Kabul on Tuesday in what appeared to be the largest demonstration in the capital since the militant group seized power in Afghanistan last month. Videos from central Kabul showed at least dozens of men and women marching through the streets shouting "Death to Pakistan" as the demonstrators made their way towards the presidential palace. Some witnesses estimated the crowd at between 300 and 500 people, many of whom were women wearing the hijab. And according to a new report by Amnesty International, troops and militias aligned with the Ethiopian government have subjected hundreds of women and girls to sexual violence in Ethiopia's war-torn Tigray region. To conduct the report, Amnesty interviewed medical professionals and 63 survivors of sexual violence between March and June 2021. Victims included children and pregnant women, according to the report. 28 survivors said Eritrean forces were the sole perpetrators of rape. The report also detailed additional acts of brutality accompanying the rapes, adding that medical professionals who have treated survivors of sexual violence in the region recounted seeing cases of nails and shrapnel used during sexual assaults. And that's it for the top regional and international stories. I'm Shane Masters.
And we now head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports.
And welcome back. It's time now for your lunchtime sports. The Reggae Boys are spared further problems ahead of their World Cup qualifying match against Costa Rica on Wednesday. This follows dramatic last-minute diplomatic talks between the Jamaican government and their Costa Rican counterparts, resulting in defender Kemar Taxi Lawrence and striker Norman Campbell being granted visas after being denied entry into the Central American country upon arrival. The players were not allowed to leave the airport and faced deportation from Costa Rica after Lawrence, who plies his trade in the USA, used his U.S. green card stamp, and Campbell, who plays in Slovenia, used his Slovenian documentation to enter Costa Rica, but these were not accepted. Residents of the USA and Slovenia do not require visas to enter Costa Rica. However, swift action involving Sports Minister Olivia Babsy-Grange and Costa Rican officials into the wee hours of Tuesday morning saw the players being granted their visas to join up with the remainder of the Jamaican delegation for tomorrow's crucial World Cup qualifier in San Jose. Minister Grange explained to TVJ Sports how the visas were eventually granted.
I got a call from Ambassador Sharon Saunders, who indicated that the process was complete and that the JFF General Secretary received a call to come and collect the boys, to come and pick them up. I haven't had confirmation that they're back with the team just yet. I haven't been able to reach the General Secretary. They're probably now resting. But all is well that ends well.
And indeed, the boys have joined up with the rest of the team at the team hotel. Now, after not immediately reporting that 2 members of their staff had tested positive for COVID-19, local horse racing promoters Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited could face disciplinary action. As we hear in this report from Denise Walters, the possibility of racing behind closed doors exists, as the regulators, the Jamaica Racing Commission, has other concerns.
Chairman of the Jamaica Racing Commission, Clovis Metcalf, says the board will decide whether or not SVRL will face any ramifications after failing to report immediately that 2 of their staff members tested positive for COVID-19. Last week, Wednesday's program was cancelled by the JRC as it stated both individuals regularly interface with staff at the track, which resulted in JRC and Caymanas Park-based staff members forced into isolation.
I think I'll ask the board to look at it and see whether we should, attach a fine to it or not, because it's not one occasion, it is 2. And I just leave it to say that I am shocked that that is the approach.
Metcalf added that there are other areas of concern.
I'm still not happy with what I'm seeing. And I have to keep bringing it to the attention of the promoters, is that there is limited mask wearing, there is no social distancing to my satisfaction, and there don't seem to be proper supervision within the crowd at the park, especially the winning area. I'm seeing children going into winning enclosures, and certainly we can't support such activity.
However, despite the recent challenges, Metcalf was quick to point out that the promoters are trying. But if punters continue to disregard the mask wearing and social distancing protocols, the possibility exists that racing could be run without spectators.
That is not off the table, but we think the promoting companies are responsible company. We do hear the announcements from time to time by Spud Rickman, reminding the people to wear the mask and social distancing. So what we are going to do is probably make a suggestion that they have some security team that sort of enforces it, because Jamaicans are of such that unless you force them to do something, they relax.
Metcalf also notes that while there is no COVID-19 testing done at the track, the regular protocols of temperature testing, hand sanitizing, having wash and sanitization stations, among other things, are done at the park. Denise Walters for TVJ Sports.
And a quick update in the Caribbean Premier League, where the Jamaica Tallawahs lost by 75 runs to defending champions Trinbago Knight Riders a short while ago at Warner Park in St. Kitts, chasing 168 for victory, while the Tallawahs were bowled out for 92. Captain Robin Powell top scored with 22. Earlier, the Knight Riders posted 167 for 4. Nendel Simmons top scoring with 42. While Captain Karen Pollard made 39 not out. Of course, the Tallawahs now they remain in 5th position in the 6-team table. And that is it for your midday sports. And I am Jermaine Brown.
Thank you so much, Jermaine Brown. And that's it indeed for your midday news package. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for primetime news. On behalf of the news, the sports, and the production teams, have a good afternoon.